The standard caliper brakes that you find on the majority of road bikes tend to work really well, or at least they all start off working well. The more you use them, the more performance is likely to decrease over time. But that isn't something you just have to accept. There are certain things that you can do that will make sure that your brakes stay in tip-top condition. So we'll run through them, not in an order linked to importance, but just as a template for you to follow. And we will start with the brake pads. So we need to inspect them. To do that, we can either drop the wheel out of the forks or remove the pad from the pad holder itself. Generally, it's just a little screw on the pad holder here for most manufacturers, except Campagnolo, there's no screw. The first thing we're looking at is pad wear. Now, a worn pad becomes less effective because you can see here, a newer one has grooves in it on the surface that help to transport water and debris away from your rim. But as it wears, so too those grooves disappear, and with it, your performance. And if it gets too bad and you end up breaking just metal on metal, well, your performance will suffer and it is going to be super costly because your rims will end up getting shredded. If you've got plenty of life left in your pad, but you notice that there's a slightly shiny surface on it, well, that's probably a result of glazing, which is a result of heat buildup from prolonged braking. It's not catastrophic, not in any sense, but you can get a little bit more performance back into your brakes if you either take a file or sand very gently that top shiny layer off your brakes. While we're here as well, we'll just make sure that there's no debris, particularly metal bits, wedged in the surface of your pad. They just get picked up from time to time as you use them. If there are, then make sure you lever them out with a pick because they can really speed up the wear on your rims. You can always consider your brake pad compound as well. Now, if you ever switch from alloy to carbon wheels or vice versa, then you will need to change your brake pads as well, and that is definitely a job you need to stay on top of. But not all brake pad compounds are created equally. Certain wheel manufacturers will only recommend certain brake pads on their own rims, and you should probably stick to that, if nothing else, just so you don't void the warranty. But what about fancy brake pads as an upgrade? Well, in my experience, I've always been a little bit underwhelmed by so-called fancy brake pads. I've tried a few on my cyclocross bike to wring a little bit of extra performance out of it, and if I'm honest, I didn't really notice the difference. But you might have more luck, and if you have had, then make sure you let us know in the comments section down below. Now, your pad shouldn't have moved over time, but if it has done, you'll want to know about it, as much for safety reasons as performance. So to check, just remember that you're looking for the pad to hit the rim squarely, evenly, and then with as much space above the pad as below it. If it goes too high or too low, then it could potentially rub against the tyre or end up in the spokes. And by hitting the rim squarely, you are getting the most amount of performance. If it squeals slightly, then you can toe the pads in, which means that the leading edge of the pad will strike the rim about 1 millimetre before the trailing edge. To do any of these adjustments, it's a very simple procedure of using that 4mm Allen key bolt there, loosening it off, and then moving the pad around. Next, we'll look at the cable. Firstly, how far do you need to pull the lever before the pads contact the rim? Now, there is no right answer here. That is down to personal preference, but you will find as the brake pads wear out, you will need to move the lever further in order to get your brakes to come on. To fix it is a very simple thing of turning that dial there, and that effectively tightens the brakes for you. In extreme cases though, as in you can't tighten that barrel adjuster enough in order for the brakes to start working again, then you very simply need to loosen that cable cinch bolt there, and then push the pads in towards the rim, and then retighten. What's absolutely fundamental to me though, and you might have picked up on this if you've watched the odd GCN Maintenance Monday video before, and that is the friction of your brake cables. So if you ride in poor conditions a lot, you'll find that water and grit and grime find their way into your brake cables and then essentially increase the friction. That increase in friction then erodes the power and crucially the modulation of your brakes. It's a very simple fix. All you've got to do is replace your brake cable inners and outers, and you probably won't be able to underestimate the extent to which that will help improve your braking. We've got a video showing you exactly how to do it, and you can get to it by following the link in the description below this video. Final thing to check, is something, again, really for those of us that ride in pretty grim conditions, and that is the brake caliper itself, and particularly the spring. Over time, the brake pivot can end up becoming seized, meaning that it's harder to pull your brake on, and then worse than that, the brake might not be able to spring open because the friction is too great. If that's the case, you can try and bring it back to life, maybe with a squirt or two of WD-40 or GT85, but if I'm completely honest, I've never really found a way of successfully bringing a seized brake caliper back to life. So there we go then, some very simple things to check to make sure that you're getting the most out of your brakes. Pad wear, alignment, and compound choice, brake cables, and also your caliper pivots as well. Don't just accept the level of braking performance that you've got and put it down to the quality of your brakes. You can always strive for better braking performance. Now, for another chance to check out the how to change your cables video, you can get straight through to it by clicking up there. Or to see how to get the most out of your brakes out on the road, you can get through to a video just down there, where we show you how to do it like a pro. Oh yeah. Or to subscribe to GCN, which you probably should do if you haven't already, just click on me. And that'll make you do it instantly, which will be satisfying. Come on, you little bugger. Get out.